is a long title. I am acting as mediator today of this wonderful panel that we have, and without further ado, I'm just going to briefly introduce their names and their companies, and I'm going to let them do the talking. So today we have Felipe Alexandre with the Alexandre Law Firm. We have Scott Silsler with Silsler Law Chartered. We have Yuri Sarud with the Calandrino Law Firm. And we also have Alexandre Piquet with Piquet Realty. And enjoy.
Piquet Law Firm.
I guess I'm up. I'm Felipe Alexandre. I can say I'm a first-generation immigrant, but I really didn't do much. I got a free ride. My parents really did all the work, and they're here today, so I just want to acknowledge your presence and thanks for the continued support. I was happy I was going to get to see He-Man. I was 8, so I wasn't like 18 when I see He-Man. It's kind of weird. But anyway, so they're the ones that came here and did all the hard work. But even being a young immigrant, I definitely felt the difficulties of adjusting your status and having to look, see the migras coming and things like that. So it made sense for me to go to law school and work in this area. Currently, I have Alexandre Law Firm, where we specialize in immigration law. And part-time, I also work for the New York State Defenders Association. It's an association in New York that helps advocate for defendants and their rights. And I'm the director of the Criminal Defense Immigration Project. So we help folks that are non-citizens, that get in trouble with the law, to see if they get a chance to stay here, because we believe everybody gets a second chance in life. There was a famous nun, Sister Prejean, and she said that nobody's as bad as the worst thing they've done. We believe that. We believe that people make mistakes, but if we can help them after whatever penalty they pay to stay here in this country in their new home with their families, that's what we advocate to do. So people are talking about this reform, and people are excited about it. It's all proposed language at this point, so we definitely want to make that clear. It could change tomorrow. It could change when it goes to the House. But at least people are curious as to what some of the provisions are going to be. I'll cover some of the basic eligibility provisions, some of the new criminal grounds of deportation, and some of the other panelists will talk about the business end and maybe how that can affect your business if the reform comes down. But you're talking 11 million people, and how do they get that number? It could be 15, it could be 20, but you're talking about a heck of a lot of people that will rejoice because after 10, even 20 years of being in the shadows, they will be able to work, travel, get driver's license, so it's a big deal. They will rejoice like Rocky. There's an American flag in the background. I mean, some people will literally jump for joy after being able to finally, after all these years, do some of these things. Now, the great thing about this is that eventually it'll give people a path to citizenship. It's gradual. For most people, it'll take 13 years, as the language is written now. For some of the dreamers, it'll take 5 years. So it's going to be called, according to the language now, Registered Provisional Immigrant Status. I should have stuck the immigrant there. Short RPI. And so you would apply for RPI. You get that for 6 years. You can renew it for another 6 years. Okay, so 6 and another 6. After 10 years as an RPI, you can apply to become a citizen of the United States. Okay? Excuse me. After 10 years of an RPI, I'll take that back. You apply to become a lawful permanent resident, a green card holder, okay? And after having a green card for 3 years, that's when you can apply to become a citizen. So 6 as an RPI, you renew for another 4 years, you apply for your green card. Once you get your green card, you hold down for another 3 years, you pass all the requirements, you can become a citizen of the United States. For dreamers, you've heard of the DREAM Act, and that is going to be somewhat incorporated into this bill. For dreamers, those that came here before they were 16 years old, those that came through the sin of their parents and they had no choice, they will be allowed to adjust at a faster rate. They will be allowed to adjust as an RPI. They become an RPI for 5 years. After that, they can immediately get their green card. When they get their green card, they are automatically eligible to become a citizen of the United States. So 5 years, but after everything is processed, you're looking more, maybe 6 years. Okay, so what do you need to do to become an RPI, Registered Provisional Immigrant Status? You need to have been physically present in the U.S. before December 31st, 2011. Okay? It doesn't matter how you got here. If you got here on a visa, if you got here through Mexico, as long as you're physically present, you can qualify. You cannot have an aggravated felony. That's a special term of art in immigration law, and we'll talk about a little bit what that means, but you definitely want to avoid that. If you know somebody that served a year or more in jail, you definitely want to see an attorney before you apply for anything. One of the best ways for immigration officers to find out if you have serious criminal convictions is when you apply for relief, you apply for adjustment of status, you apply for citizenship when you shouldn't be doing so, and they say, thank you very much. Now we're going to arrest you and deport you because we didn't know about it before. So it's important that you consult. You can't have a felony, and the felony is if your state qualifies it as a felony. So it could work for you and against you depending on how that goes. As a defense attorney, everybody else is like, oh, this is great, get the felons out of here. Some felonies are not actually that serious, so it's going to be unfair for some folks, and I really feel for them. For example, some driving offenses, if you have several suspensions, you could trigger a felony in some states. So you're not talking very serious crime in some instances, and those folks will be barred. So any felony thus far, as the language is written, will bar them. 3 misdemeanors, delito menor, something a little less. If you have 3 misdemeanors, you're out, but with some exceptions, and we'll cover that. From December 31st, 2011, until you apply for RPI status, until you get it, you need to be continually present in the United States. There are some exceptions. If the departure was brief and casual, then you're okay, but you need to make sure that once you apply, you stay here. You need to go back, and if you haven't paid your taxes, you need to see more or less how much you've made, and you'll contact an accountant and things like that, because you need to pay all your tax liabilities that you've accumulated before you can become an RPI. And if you have to go back 20 years, it's going to be tough for some folks, but that's what you have to do. Pay applicable fees. They say the fees will be used to run the program. Now, supply and demand. A lot of people want this, so they might take advantage and stick it to these folks. We don't know how much the fees are going to be, but you're going to have to be able to cover that. $1,000 penalty, okay? You have to pay that. It can be done in installments, okay? So there's a lot of financial burdens that folks are going to have to overcome to get this, but it's a big deal, and I'm sure that the community will rally and help folks. You can't be inadmissible under immigration law. There are grounds of inadmissibility written in immigration law, Immigration Nationality Act, Section 212, if you want to be geeky and look it up. You can't trigger any of those grounds. You're talking about many criminal convictions, certain health grounds, things like that. If you're a habitual drunkard, if you have a lot of DWIs, you could be barred from doing that. So consult with somebody before you apply for this, because if you're inadmissible, oh, you applied, thank you very much, now we're going to deport you because we didn't know about you before. And most importantly, you need to have unlawful status on or before April 16, 2013. Why that date? That's the date that they took the bill, they introduced it to the Senate. Okay, that's just an arbitrary date that they're drawing a line on right there. And so if you had unlawful status before that, on that date or before that, then you should be okay. For example, so you need to have been here in 2011, but unlawful status on or before 2013. How did that work? Well, for example, somebody comes here on a student visa. They came here on a visa. They're legal. They're studying political science, and they figure out, you know what? I really think I just want to work as a dancer in the Magic Kingdom. This political science, it's not working for me. So they break their student visa. They go out. They take some theater courses, but they're out of status because they're not pursuing their study for their visa. Then they get a job somewhere in the Magic Kingdom, doing kung fu dance and some kind of Mulan or something. Okay, they're out of status, but as long as that status was broken before that date, it doesn't matter how they came in before 2011. Okay, you get some waivers. Okay, so the 3 misdemeanor part, if you can show that it would be in the public interest, if you can show humanitarian reasons for them to waive that for you, you could stay here despite committing 3 misdemeanors. And that adds up very quick. If somebody had, they hung out with the wrong crowd, 3 misdemeanors goes by very quick. If you stayed here unlawfully, you know that if you go back to your country, you trigger a bar where you can't come back for a year. In many cases, you can't come back for 10 years, but you will be forgiven. You will be pardoned if you overstayed your visa here. So that's a pardon you'll get through this bill. If you fail to attend a prior immigration hearing, let's say somebody is coming in through Mexico, they get apprehended, they get a court date, they never show up. They are walking deportation orders just circling over their heads. And so you have a lot of people like that, and they're unable to file a motion to reopen because too much time has passed, there's not enough reason to do that. But this law will forgive you if you didn't attend your court date. Okay? If you were previously deported and you found your way back into the United States, you can get a pardon for that under this bill. If you were deported and you came back after December 31st, 2011, then you're going to have to apply for a special waiver, but the bill will allow you to do that if you have certain family members here who are U.S. citizens or lawful permanent residents, LPRs. Okay. Let's say you were present here in 2011, but your family came before you. You can still reunite with your family. You can apply for them as derivatives. In other words, they would follow you in that benefit as long as they were here on or before December 31st, 2012. And again, they also need continuous physical presence from that date until the date that they adjust to an RPI. Okay? And again, brief and casual departures are okay if you can show it was only brief and you weren't abandoning your residence here in the United States. In some cases, folks came here as a family, they got divorced. In many cases, the bill allows for some provisions, even for those folks, for the divorced mother, for example, to apply for it. The kids that are under that mother to apply for RPI, under the father, for example, that got here in 2011. So in many ways, it has been very generous. Okay. So people are excited about it, but it is going to take some time. And again, it's the proposed language. It could change tomorrow. But here's how it's going to happen. First, the House needs to pass it. It'll pass the Senate. It's going to the House. They're on a little break, but they're going to start deliberating these issues again. When they pass it, that's when it's enacted into law. Okay? Once it's enacted into law, the government, the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, will have up to a year, hopefully they don't take a year, but they'll have up to a year to write the rules and the application procedures as to how people can apply and A, B, and C. So they'll have all that time. After they write the rules, then it's going to be a 1-year application period. Okay? And that period can be extended by up to 18 months. So we're looking at a kind of a lengthy timeline here, but after it's enacted, that's great because people are going to receive significant protection. Does anybody remember who this guy? I mean, the title gives it away, but if you don't know who it is, Hammer doesn't help you out. It's Martello. What is that? Anybody know who it is? Just shout it out.
MC Hammer.
Thank you. Yeah. You were born here. That doesn't count.
Oh, sorry, man.
All right. I mean, he had this one-hit wonder, the can't touch this. Okay. So the enactment is going to be like, you can't touch this. Yes, I'm here illegally. I came in. I was deported. I'm back in. But you know what? You can't touch me now because this has been enacted. Now they can touch you. They can even arrest you. Okay. So that's far from not touching you. I know. But at least they can't deport you because if you are detained, okay, you're going to show the government, look, I'm eligible for this. I came in before 2011. I don't have, major crimes. I'm eligible. They have to let you go. Or they have to prove that you're wrong within 7 days. If not, they have to let you go. Okay? And they have to give you a chance to apply for RPI. Okay? So if you go to immigration court, your lawyer or yourself, you move to terminate the case, to give yourself a chance to apply for RPI status. You get that adjustment, and then you're fine. So in other words, after the law is enacted, even if ICE officers, immigration officers detain you or a friend, you can't touch this. Okay? If you have a prior order of removal, if sometimes they order you deported and they say, okay, you have X number of days to report for your deportation, some people just forget about it, right? And they go somewhere else. If you have a prior order, this law is going to give protection to folks that you'll be able to file motions to reopen your case and to allow you to adjust to RPI. Like I mentioned, if you've been previously deported, you can come back. Certain folks that have been previously deported, if they have certain family members here, if they have a spouse who's a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident, if they have a child who's a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident, even if they've been previously deported, they're in Brazil or wherever, they can apply to re-enter the country as an RPI. So this is really going to cause a wave of folks who adjust their status to something legal. It's not quite as good as being an LPR, but it's something, and it's a big deal for folks. In immigration law, if you commit certain, mostly criminal offenses, or in some cases if they have reason to believe that you've committed certain criminal offenses, you can be mandatorily detained. In other words, you are in immigration custody until you resolve your immigration case. The bill allows for mandatory detention to be not so mandatory. It gives judges certain discretion. If you can prove that you're not a danger to society, or you're not going to abscond, that it's in the public interest for you, to be out in the community. If there's no good reason, in other words, to detain you, in many cases, mandatory detention won't be so mandatory anymore. So that's a great thing that they want to give. Judges now will have the power to have even more discretion. In other words, the option to allow you to remain in this country. A lot of folks are ordered deported, and they say, well, the judge was a jerk. And you know what, maybe he was. You have some judges that are, okay? But the problem is judges are bound by the law. So, for example, you're detained, you're placed in deportation proceedings, and you're not eligible for any kind of relief. In other words, you're not eligible for any kind of exception to allow the judge to allow you to remain in this country. He can't do anything for you, okay, if you're not eligible for relief, or you've committed certain crimes that preclude you from that relief. The new immigration bill, if it comes to pass, it will give judges more discretion if you're not eligible for certain forms of relief, as long as you can prove that it's humanitarian, it's in the public interest, if you can prove extreme hardship to one of your family members that's a U.S. citizen or an LPR. So it gives them more room to be a nice guy to folks. Now, you can't have the aggravated felonies. That's the one you need to watch out for. There's nothing they can do with the aggravated felonies. And just in case you know folks that are fleeing a country where they fear persecution, Brazil's not a very hot persecution play, but you have successful asylum cases from Brazil, believe it or not. You step on the right toe in the government, maybe you're going to get persecuted, right? So folks come here, they have a year to file for asylum. Most folks that are being persecuted, they want to get the heck out of there. They're not thinking about asylum law and INA 208 and 209 and adjustment. They want to come here because they're afraid, okay? Sometimes they miss on this one-year deadline, and unless they can prove some extreme circumstances to why they missed the 1 year, they are out of luck. Okay? So no more one-year deadline for filing for asylum cases. That's great. And if you know anybody from a country where they suffered persecution and they missed out on the 1 year, they will be able to reopen their case and go forth from there. Yes, please? Oh, I have 5? Okay. All right. So I should probably step on it. Let's see here. It's going to create some nice family law provisions where, well, not so nice ones, where if you're a U.S. citizen brother or sister, you cannot apply for your brother and sister, for example, in Brazil. That they're going to cut that. They're going to institute a merit-based system. It's going to be a point system. I think some of our panelists will talk more about that. So that's unfortunate, but at least they're going to improve the way you can bring more of your family members over here as immediate relatives, and we can explain that afterwards. They're adding new grounds of deportation, so if your kid is dressed in colors and flashing signs, he looks like he's involved with gangs, you might want to tell him to stop, because now it's a new ground of deportation. DWIs, right now, they're not grounds of deportation because of the way the statutes are written. Nobody plans, right, on getting a DWI. So the way the statute's written, it doesn't trigger deportation, but now 3 or more will, and if in the third one you get a year or more sentence, then you're out of luck. As well as some domestic violence, crime against children, violation of order protection. You need to watch out for that. Say hello to the bad guy. This new word that's being tossed around, crimmigration, people really need to focus on that, especially after a Supreme Court case that says that criminal defense counsel needs to advise immigrants of the consequences of their crimes and convictions. So that's something we focus on. There's all kinds of relief that you can apply for. Unfortunately, my time is running low, but even some issues, for example, that wouldn't make you deportable. Okay, I'm good, for example. I got caught with a little marijuana, that's just what happened. I was told I wasn't going to get deported because it was under 30 grams. Great. You go to Brazil to visit family, you come back, and they say, wait a second, you can't come in, you're inadmissible. What do you mean I'm inadmissible? Well, you triggered a ground of inadmissibility. So it's really important if you have criminal convictions to really consult with somebody. And there's all kinds of relief you can do for that, but I'm going to fly through this. And you have different terms. I don't have time to go into them, but there are many crimes and many different ways that they can subject you to deportation. It depends on when you got the conviction. It depends on what status you have. If you're a green card holder, how long you've had that status, etc. If you've committed certain crimes, you're not eligible for the relief. Watch the aggravated felony. And just briefly, touch on the aggravated felony. It's really not that bad. If you have certain crimes where you got a year in jail, for example, you stole something, you stole a candy bar, you took it to trial, judge hated you, gave you a year, that's an aggravated felony. It's not that bad. Or some of them don't even require a year in jail. Drug distribution, excuse me. Are you thinking, wow, I mean, you're thinking like Tony Montana, drug distribution. You know, some statutes punish, handing something for just a few bucks. I mean, that's enough to make you an aggravated felony. Sexual abuse of a minor. And you're thinking, well, I mean, this guy's groping kids. Send him back to his or wherever he's from, Sexual abuse of a minor, under 18, that person lied to you, you get into an affair with that person, that's sexual abuse of a minor. Or you do something really stupid. For example, there's a famous case from the Board of Immigration Appeal. I remember it because I picture myself talking to this guy. It's a matter of Rodriguez. And I'm talking to this guy and I'm saying, Rodriguez, what the hell are you thinking? He flashed somebody, and I guess that person was less than 18. That's enough for sexual abuse of a minor. Now, it's a stupid thing. It's a silly thing. But now he's an aggravated felon, and he can never come back to the country ever again. So crimes are tough. Okay, I know my time is running out. If you have one or somebody's detained for one, you definitely need to see an attorney. There are ways that you can get relief. Yes, you can get relief if you've committed one of these offenses. I'm going down the list here, just certain options. You can vacate the conviction because of that Supreme Court case. If your lawyer doing the criminal proceeding didn't tell you about the immigration consequences of your crime, you can vacate the case, start over, negotiate a new plea with the district attorney to make you not deportable. Or you can even be a citizen and not know it. We can tell you about that later. But that's a great way to save people from relief. And this is my cue to stop and turn it over to the next panelist. Thank you.
Thank you.